So it says in Re'eh, I was looking for, okay. Es kol hadover asher anochi mitzaveh eschem also tishru lasos. Whatever I command you, you should do. Lo sosef olav velo sigra mimeno. Do not add on to it, and do not detract from it. Now, if you take a look at Rashi here, by the way, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, Torah Anytime people. We're back. Vacation's over. Sorry, I was on vacation's beginning. I was just home for 3 weeks. Vacation. So the Torah says like this. It's like the guy who said, my wife and I can't agree on our vacation plans. I want to go to Florida, and she wants to come with. It's on the left column of 1006. It says, don't add on. Left column, 6th line from the top. If you find the place, we show the person next to you. Lo sosef olav chamesh totafos b'tefillin. 5 totafos in tefillin. 5 compartments, 5 paragraphs in tefillin. Chamisha minim belulav. 5 species by the lulav. Arba brachos b'birkas kohanim. 4 different brachos by birkas kohanim. Mitamar, do if ever pull the door closed. Thanks. So the Torah says, don't add on and don't detract. So let's say you have a lulav, an estrog, a hadas, and an arova. You got lots of green and yellow over there, right? Maybe we'll put in a rose, put in some red. That would look good, kind of good, add a little flavor to it. Maybe some pomegranate seeds, sprinkle it around, something like that. That would look good. Nope, don't add on. Don't add on and don't detract. Don't add on, don't detract. So the Mefarshim say, we understand, almost, it's kind of instinctive, intuitive, not to detract. We understand don't detract from the Torah. What's wrong with adding on? What's wrong with adding on to the Torah? Why not add on?
You get sick.
What's that?
You get sick, it's too much.
Too much. Sometimes you take on more than you should. We'll see in this week's Parsha, in Kiseitza, that's certainly true. Sometimes you add on. The answer is that if a little is good, more is not necessarily better. There are many places, times in life where a little is good and more is not necessarily better. If you make an apple cinnamon cake and you put in too much apple, it's not going to taste as good. If you put in too much cinnamon, it's not going to taste as good. Right? There's a formula, there's a recipe, and a lot of things in life are very, very precise. Too much medicine, a little medicine is good. Too much medicine is not good. A little alcohol is good. Well, more alcohol is better, but too much is not good. So there's always a formula in life. It's like how much. There's no end to that. Okay, so the Dubna Magid, who was one of the famous, the Dubna Magid was known for his parables. He lived around the time of the Vilna Gaon, Rav Yaakov Krantz. There's a brilliant. What do you call it? He used to always use these very, very spot on illustrations to make his point, to drive his point home. So he said, there's a guy walks over to his friend once, and he says to his friend, could I borrow your broom? So he says, yeah. So he borrows the broom, and the next day he comes back, and he gives him the big broom with the little broom. So he says, what's with the little broom? He says, your broom had a baby. When it was by me, he had a baby. He says, come on, what's going on? I said, I'm telling you, the broom had a baby. You want to give me a little broom? I'll take the little broom. Takes the little broom. The next day he comes over. He says, "Could I borrow your what do you call it? That bottle you use for pouring your wine, the decanter." So he says, "Yeah." He comes back. Next day he brings him back to the wine decanter with 2 little wine decanters, 2 little wine. He says, "What's going on?" He said, "Your wine decanter had twins." He says, "Okay, listen, you want to give me? I'll take the twins." Great. So he comes back the 3rd day. He says, "Could I borrow your silver candlestick?" He says, "Yeah." A silver candle, yeah, absolutely. He takes the silver candlesticks home, very expensive silver candlesticks, and he waits. The next day, the guy doesn't show up. The next day after the guy doesn't show up, he's starting to get nervous. He comes to the guy's house. He says, my silver candlestick?" He goes, "Yeah." It's very sad. So, "What do you mean?" He says, "Your candlestick died." Candlesticks can't die. He says, "And brooms can have children?" Right? So the Magi say, what happens is when you start adding on in one area, that you're likely to rationalize and start detracting in another area. And therefore the Torah says, don't add on and don't detract. That's on a simple level. We've seen this because what's happened is in Judaism, the conservative movement, let me only use this as an example, but in the 1950s or 40s, whenever it was in America, you know what the first thing the conservative movement did? The conservative movement, where there were many people in the conservative movement, at least the reform is something else. In the conservative movement, many of the Jews were well-meaning. You know what the first thing they did was? They said, you are allowed to drive to shul on Shabbos. Why? For the preservation of Judaism. Because otherwise, if people can't drive to shul, you won't be connected to the shul, you won't have any connection in Judaism whatsoever. And what happened? What happened is that you don't have very many second or third generation conservative Jews anymore. Right? In Chicago, where I grew up, when I was growing up, there were a lot of conservative shuls in Chicago. Today, almost all of them are Orthodox. Because the conservative movement died out. The next generation dies out because you change it. You tampered with the formula. You tampered with Judaism. You could have the best intentions, but you're detracting or you're adding on. If you detract and you add on, you're going to ruin the formula. Whatever the formula is, you're going to ruin it. So nobody would think of playing chess and adding one pawn for each side. And if you have 9 pawns instead of 8 pawns, let's play chess. Nobody's going to do that. And nobody's going to change the inherent nature of the game. You may decide to play the game a certain way, but you're not going to change the inherent makeup, the makeup of the game itself. Judaism is made of a formula which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. God gave us a formula for Judaism. So the Torah comes along and says it's very important not to change it. And if a person goes, you have this question of the Rabbanan adding on fences. Right? The Rabbanan added on all sorts of fences. Almost all of the laws of kashrus, the things that we do not do, all the various limitations in the law, almost all of them are d'Rabbanan. Do you know that? Because by Torah law, you could have chicken with milk. By Torah law, you could have beef with milk if both are cold. By Torah law, you could have a piece of salami and you could have a piece of hard cheese. You could put it on. The only thing that's forbidden by Torah law is to cook them together. Then you have a fence, and then you have to wait 6 hours, and you have to wash your hands out, wash your mouth out. All these laws were forbidden. Well, aren't you adding on to the Torah? No. Because there, the Rabbanan are given the authority to protect Torah. And by the way, the rule is, if you watch the pattern through Jewish history, when something was created as a limitation, something that was imposed on us, has usually lasted and has preserved Judaism. When something was made easier, we've lost Judaism. If it's easier to drive on Shabbos, it's easier to convert, and it's easier to eat certain foods, and it's easier to take things out of the siddur. Anything that's made our life easier has destroyed Judaism. And the various inconveniences of the reason you wait 6 hours. I don't know, some of you are from what your backgrounds are. Do any of you wait 1 hour? Any of you from Holland? Nobody here is from Holland. You all wait 6 hours, right? So 6 hours is 3. Why 3? Oh, 3 hours. Okay, there's a 3. I think the German one, I guess, 3 hour is 3 hours. So people have. My daughter-in-law actually was got married. She had a 3 hour. Her father kept 3 hours, but she married my son, and she has the right to maintain the 3 hours. She has the right. That's the one thing the wife does not have to do like the husband. She could keep her minhag, but she decided not to because she felt that it's going to be too confusing in the home, so she took on 6 hours. So I traded with her. I took on the 3 hours, and that doesn't work. Doesn't work that way, you know. So that that's why Jews are funny people. You know, sometimes you sit down and you have a delicious piece of meat or chicken. I don't want to make myself fleishik. Ever say that? Right? True or not true? Only a Jew will give up a beautiful steak, because sometimes in the next 6 hours he wants that much milk in his coffee. Right? Isn't that interesting? I don't want to make myself fleishik. You ever say that? You don't make yourself fleishik, but it's not a conversion. You'll come back. You'll be with us. It's okay. You'll get out of it. It's like people say, I don't want to eat bread because I don't want to wash. You ever say that? I don't want to wash? I have no problem with the washing. By me, it's the benching which is the issue. That's what people should really say. I just don't want to bench. They'll say, no, I don't want to wash. Yeah, I don't mind washing. Washing is fine. Right? It's the benching. It's the benching that gets us. So we're funny people. All of those are d'Rabbanan, because the d'Rabbanan have the authority to enact for the preservation of Torah. But that's a Beis Din. That's a Beis Din decision. You have to understand, when the Rabbanan made it, all the d'Rabbanans and Shabbos, muktzah, you can't move a pen on Shabbos. By Torah law, you can move your pen. is D'Rabbanan. So people sometimes think, oh, D'Rabbanan, we're a bunch of guys in the back room smoking cigars. Think, okay, let's see, how can we make life rough for the people today? Right? Let's see, what can we, let's nail them on muktzah. Well, that'll get them. That's not the D'Rabbanan. D'Rabbanan, we're looking at what's going to preserve Torah, what's going to preserve Yiddishkeit. And then a Beis Din made a decision, a Beis Din decision of making that a law. They're allowed to create those fences, but your average person cannot go and add on or detract from the Torah. Okay, that's all I want to say at Parsha's Ray. Let's go Parsha Shoftim. Okay, page 1024. This is particularly suitable as we start heading for Elul and Rosh Hashanah. Boom. Elul, Rosh Hashanah. Leave it. Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha b'chol she'arecha asher Hashem lokecha d'aseh lecha yishvatecha v'shoftu esam mishpat tzedek. You should put judges and shotrim. Now, unfortunately, modern Hebrew has had, in effect, made inroads, and we think of shotrim as policemen, so we're picturing a guy with a blue whistle, with a blue uniform and a whistle, right? Shotrim means enforcers. The word mishtar means discipline. These are the people who carry out the laws of the Beis Din, the decisions of the Beis Din. Titen lecha b'chol she'arecha, you should put in the gates of all your cities, asher Hashem lokecha d'aseh lecha yishvatecha, which God gives you in your tribes. V'shoftu es ha'am mishpat tzedek. They should judge the people a righteous judgment. Now, first of all, the reason the courts are b'chol she'arecha, they're at the entrance of the city. You have the Beis Din, which is a very, very encouraging thing, because that means anybody entering the city knows there's law and order. And that will encourage people coming into the city, and B, it discourages people from coming into the city to make trouble, because they see that there's law and order. When you go to the United States, you see there's no law and order, so it's a Hefkerwelt. Everybody can do whatever they want, because the liberals run the country. So everybody can do whatever they want until they put the liberals in prison. Then there'll be some law and order. But as long as there are liberals in the country, so this guy is great. This Abbott, this governor of Texas, he's my hero. You know what he did? This guy Abbott from Texas, the governor of Texas, well, they got all these illegal aliens crossing the border. And he keeps claiming that, he keeps crying, he's the governor of Texas. He says, listen, I got all these illegal aliens coming across the border. And they say, listen, you're biased, you're a bigot, and you're what do you call it, and you're not humanitarian. So you know what he's done? You don't know what he's done? He put them on buses and he sent them to New York and Washington. And all of a sudden they're kind of, hey, what are you sending us busloads of illegal guys? Well, you just said that you love them, man. You're all the way he purposely picked. He purposely picked liberal states, liberal states, New York and Washington D.C. And you guys are telling me that we got to be tolerant. No, there you go. Put your money where your mouth is. He's my hero. I'm telling you, I would vote for this guy for president right now. He said, what do you want from me? I'm telling you, it's all one country here. We're all one America. No, you got to be a little more tolerant. Great, have some tolerance. I'll give you 5 busloads of tolerance now. Go deal with it. First, he sent already 10 busloads. He said hundreds of it. You heard about this? It's Givaldi. I'm telling you, because they're telling the guy, listen, you should be telling, why should I handle it? It's not my problem. They crossed the border. They crossed the border to Texas. They crossed the border into America. You're also part of America, even though you're in New York, right? You're also part of America. Well, here you go. They said he just sent them another 5 busloads. I love it. He said, send them straight to Grand Central Station and unloaded them there. Now deal with them, right? It's beautiful. So I love stuff like that. So the first thing the Torah says, there got to be law and order. And the second thing the Torah says, B'chol she'arecha, in all of your cities and all of your tribes. One of the problems, and I tell you, this is why the Torah has the legal system. You have to understand, it's not a joke. There are situations in life, there are situations where nothing is perfect. There's no situation that's perfect. Sometimes each situation you have a choice. You can be single, which has its problems, and you can be married, which has its problems. Now, isn't there a situation where there are no problems? No. The answer is no. The answer is no. When you're single, you don't have a mother-in-law. When you're married, you do, right? So each one has a problem, right? Each one has a potential problem. Each one has a potential. When you're single, you don't have to support a family. When you're married, you do have to support a family, right? When you're single, you might be lonely. When you're married, You wish you were lonely. Yeah, and so each one has a positive and negative. Each one's got a drawback. Each one's got, okay. In a legal system, there's no system that's perfect. There's no system that's perfect. Could courts make mistakes? Yeah, okay. So what happens in the United States? I'm only using the United States as an example. I don't know what goes on in other countries. In the United States, you have all these, you go to court, and then there's till you get a court case, till you get a court date, till the lawyers go in and they manage to dray things out, until you finally, so these things could drag on for years and years and years. And all you end up is a backlog of cases. So first thing Torah says, every city's got to have courts, number one. Number two, a court case in halacha takes a maximum of 2 days. And number three, there are no lawyers. How do you like that? No lawyers. You go in front, the witnesses come in front of the judges. The judges are legal experts and tzaddikim who do not have any sort of biases. And they have character trait. Their character is developed where they're honest and they're looking for the truth. Within 2 days, case is over. We hear what the witnesses have to say. We deliberate. Yeah, no. Guilty, innocent, free, not free. Game over. Next case. Now, is there a problem there? Well, maybe it moved a little too fast. What's the alternative? The alternative is that you're going to just get you're getting a log jam of cases, and people will never get justice. Since that's one of the reasons why criminals commit crimes. They know nothing's going to happen to them. So they eventually get to court, and in New York they got what's it called? Bail reform, prison reform, what's it called? Which we call putting criminals back on the street, right? So that's got its drawbacks. Every system you come up with is going to have pluses and minuses. The Torah says the system we have over here is you're going to have courts everywhere. There's no backlog of cases. You move the case next, and the idea that their mistakes are going to be made, very few mistakes are going to be made because the Beis Din are the legal experts and the Torah experts who understand, they hear the witnesses, they deliberate, they talk it over, they come to a conclusion. Megate Viter. Next, bring them in, next. That's how the Torah, the legal system works. Now, here, the commentaries, several Meforshim, take this completely out of context. They make it completely out of context. Because Shoftim v'shotrim titan lecha b'chol she'orecha is we're talking to each Jew. B'chol she'orecha means your gates. We have 5 senses. So the 5 gateways the 5 gateways with which the various stimuli of the world enter us. We have 5 gates. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. Right? Those are the senses that we have. Says the Torah, number 1, you should put judges over your gateways. Each individual should decide, should I engage in this activity or not? Those are the judges. Shoftim are the judges. Is this the proper thing for me to do or not proper? Is it proper me for eat this food or not proper? Is it proper me to help this person or should I not help this person? Should I engage in this activity or not engage in it? Those are the judges. And each person has to make a judgment. Right now, is this the right thing to do? Or is it something I should refrain from doing? Then we have to have shotrim. What are the shotrim? That means each person has to be able to activate the willpower necessary to then enforce the decision that he or he himself has made. If I've made the decision that this is something that I should do, I now have to enforce that decision. If I've made the decision it's something I should avoid doing, I should not speak about this person because it's Lashon Hara, then I have to have the willpower to enforce that. So there are 2 stages, Shoftim, Bitrotim, Tita Lecha, B'chol She'orecha. And every one of our senses, which is the gates into the neshama, every one of our senses, we should have the judges in the Shotrim that we activate in order to A, make the decisions, and B, to enforce the decisions. Number 2, why does it say at the end of the pasuk, it says, V'shoftu asam mishpat tzedek, it says, you should judge them judgment of a righteous judgment. Mishpat tzedek. I mean, what would you have thought that we should do it not mishpat tzedek? Judgment means, how does he translate it? I don't like the word righteous. You get a better word than righteous. Just. You should judge them justly. What would you think? If it wouldn't have said judge them, would you say judge them not justly? Mishpat tzedek, what, you should judge them corruptly? Why does it even say that? Why do you have to say mishpat? Of course, v'shofto it's on mishpat tzedek. What do you need that for? Why mishpat tzedek? Okay. So, I forgot the answer. I forgot the answer to your question. Why does it say mishpat tzedek? V'shoftu is a mishpat tzedek. 1 second. Okay, we'll come back to that. I think we'll come back to that. Okay. The underlying principle here is by Shoftim v'shotrim that everybody needs a structure and everybody needs accountability. That's why it says Shoftim v'shotrim titein lecha. How would you translate titein lecha, gentlemen?
To yourself.
For yourself. Make judges and enforcers for yourself. So the first idea is what we just said, that you have to enforce your own actions. More than that is everybody needs accountability. A person does not want to be left on his own. Human nature is we like not having authorities over us. Right? A person does not want authority. When you don't have authority, when you don't have accountability to anybody, you just kind of feel like you're floating. Right? That was the curse of the Nachash, the curse of the snake. What did God say to the snake? What was the punishment of the original serpent? Go, just go, and you'll have food everywhere you go. But I don't want to hear from you. You're on your own. That's a teenager's dream, right? Teenager's dream, just give the teenager a credit card, and I don't want to hear from you. Yeah, great. But the problem is in life, you're not a teenager your whole life. And as you advance, I need accountability. I need accountability. When you're a child, you're accountable to your parent. When you're in school, you're accountable to the authorities. When you're married, you're accountable to your wife. And ironically, that's a person wants that. The person wants that accountability. I need somebody that I am answerable to. Can't live on my own without having to account for my actions. I need somebody who I am answerable to. That's the titen lecha b'chol she'orecha. More than that. There's a story about this guy gets arrested. The guy's a robber. He gets arrested, and he's caught stealing. So they sentence him to death. He's going to be executed for stealing. So before they execute him, he says, "Excellency, I just want to tell you something. I'm guilty. I know I stole, and you have to execute me. I just want you to know that I have a method. I happen to know of a method where you could plant seeds from a tree, and the tree will then grow in 10 minutes, and you'll be able to harvest the fruit. Would you like to know the secret?" Oh, yes. That could be economically very beneficial. The king says, "Well, yes, I would very much like to know how you grow trees in 10 minutes. The guy says, "Okay, give me some apple seeds." So the king gives him some apple seeds. "Okay, I need some of this, some coriander, and some of this." He mixes the whole thing. He says, "Okay, now we're going to pour this into the ground, and with 10 minutes, the tree is going to sprout. There's only one problem. I can't pour it into the ground because this does not work if somebody who stole pours it into the ground. Therefore, I can't do it because I stole. I'm obviously guilty. I'd like that maybe the minister of your treasury. Let's call the treasury minister. Let him do it." The treasury minister is like, "No, there's been a lot of. I can't say for sure that I haven't accidentally taken something or misappropriated something." So he says, "Okay. How about the justice minister? We'll call you. You do it." He goes, "Look, I've tried. I can't. I don't know." So he says, "How about you, Excellency? Why don't you do it?" Says to the king. So the king goes, I do remember when I was a kid. I think I shoplifted. I didn't. He says, "What do you want from me? You're going to execute me for stealing, and not one of you is willing to go and say you didn't steal. So what do you want from me?" So the Torah says, "Shoftim v'shotrim titein lecha b'chol she'orecha," means that we're judges all the time. They're one of my least favorite words in the entire language is being judgmental, right? Which was obviously made up, I guess, on Berkeley, on the campus of Berkeley. You're being very judgmental, right? And you're being judgmental about my judgmentalness, right? You're there. When you say to me, if I say you're being judgmental, you're being judgmental. As soon as you say I'm being judgmental. It's a meaningless word if you think about it. Don't be so judgmental. You mean don't offer an opinion that's different than yours? Is that what you mean? Yeah. Because that's really what it means. You're being judgmental. Well, I got news for you, gentlemen. You make judgments hundreds, if not thousands of times a day. True or not true? As soon as you look at a person, you make a judgment. You make a judgment all day long. We're making judgments. So when some liberal says, don't be judgmental, it's because you've expressed an opinion, usually which is the correct opinion, and they're insulted or they're pretending to be insulted by your opinion. But we make judgments all the time, on a regular basis. By their reasoning, if you come over to me and say to me, can I borrow $20? I'm suspicious. I don't know you. I don't know who you are. And I'm concerned that maybe, I'm being judgmental. Just if anybody in mind. So a guy walks over to you with a rusty needle dangling out of his arm, and he comes, hey buddy, okay, you got $10? Yeah, I can trust him. He's good for the money. Right? And if I don't, then I'm being judged by. You understand how ridiculous that is? So the Torah is telling you over here, you're going to make judgments on a regular basis. And we're constantly judging people, aren't we? Especially when it comes to their behavior. This guy, I don't know if he davens so well, and I don't know about his end. Says the Torah, Shoftim v'shoftim titen lecha v'shotecha. Make your judges for yourself. Don't be so fast to pass judgment on other people. Right? We're good, but we're not there yet. Don't be so fast to cast aspersions on other people. You have to be realistic. And yes, you have to make judgments, because we make judgments all the time. And yes, when you go out, when you're trying to decide whether you're going to take somebody as a business partner, aren't you going to make a judgment? Aren't you going to look into his background? Aren't you going to check? If you're trying to decide if you could trust a used car salesman, aren't you going to find out who this guy is, how he conducts himself? If you're going to go to somebody's house to eat for Shabbos, aren't you going to find out if the food, what their level of kashrus is? It's irresponsible not to do it. You're being judgmental. You're being judgmental. I'm not being judgmental. I'm being responsible. You want to call it? That's what you call judgmental. So that's good. So okay, yes, I am being judgmental. How's that? Yes, I'm being judgmental, and I'm proud of it. Well, maybe we'll start a movement. Mayor, how about it? We're the judgmentalists, right? How's that? It'll be a new movement. All right. We'll charge money. Right, we'll charge money for we'll all get rich. That's what the Torah is telling you. Don't be so quick to judge other people. If we're already looking for improvement, so we have to start with ourselves. That's why people sometimes have all sorts of ideas of how the Jewish people should improve. Let's improve. Let's do something. The Jewish people need to improve. You know how you improve the Jewish people? Work on yourself. We all know what everybody else's flaw is. This guy talks during davening. This guy doesn't put on tefillin. This guy, everybody knows what everybody else's flaw is. The Gemara says a person sees everybody's flaws except his own. It's true. It's true. The only reason we don't see our own is because we don't look at them. If we look at them, we'd find them. They're there. Believe me, they're there. Says the Gemara. Says the Torah. Make a judge for yourself first. Okay. Now, take a look at the next passage. I'll show you something remarkable. Torah says, Lo sata mishpat, third line. Don't distort the judgment. I have to look up the answer. I forgot what the answer is to that. Why it says mishpat tzedek. I saw, what?
Rashi talks about it. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for.
Where is, I know that I've seen it. I saw that with Shoftim mishpat tzedek, and I don't remember what do you call it. Of course it's going to be a Mishpat Tzedek. I saw it in my notes. I have to check my notes again. I was pretty sure I saw. I don't remember what the answer is. Okay. Lo sata mishpat. Do not distort the judge. Do not pervert the judgment. Lo sakir panim. Do not play favorites. Don't recognize faces. Velo sikach shochad. Don't take bribes. Ki ha-shochad ye'aver einei chachamim. The shochad blinds the wise. V'salef divrei tzadikim, and it distorts the words of the righteous. Now the Gemara says the word shochad, the root of the word shochad is chad, which is like echad. You become one with the person who's bribed you. That means as soon as you take a bribe, that creates a connection between you and the person. In the same way that if I'm in court, I see that my argument is the correct argument. If you give me a bribe, so that I'm now seeing things your way. And the bribe is so powerful, that you can't work here, you can't take a bribe and stay. You know, they used to say in Chicago, an honest cop in Chicago was a cop that once you paid him off, he stayed bought. Right? That was an honest cop. A judge can't remain objective once he's taken money. The only time in court that you're not allowed to bribe a judge either. The only time in halacha that you're allowed to bribe a judge is if you're in like a South American country and you go to court and you know for a fact the judge has been bribed by the other side, because that's how it works. You could bribe the judge to get a fair trial, because the other side for sure has bribed them. Right? And there halacha says you can actually bribe a judge, because that's the only way to get a fair trial is by bribing him. So both got to bribe him. But if you get shochad, takes away, it removes your objectivity. Shechad, you become one with the person who's giving you the bribe. Okay, that's problem number one. Number two, why does it go from the singular to the plural? If you notice, it says, Lo sikach shochad, don't take the bribe, ki ha-shochad ya'aver einei chachamim, plural. It says you, individual, singular, don't take a bribe. Then it goes to the plural, einei chachamim v'tzadivrei tzadikim. Why did you go from the singular to the plural? Good question, right, Daniel? What's the answer? How many judges sit in the Torah court? Well, you have different levels. You have the Sanhedrin of 71, you have a judge of 23, then you have the basic judge court of 3. Right? Monetary law is 3. Now let's say I've bribed you, or 2 other judges. Once you get the bribe, what are you going to do? You're going to exert as much pressure as you can on the other judges to paskin your way. So even though they didn't take the bribe, but suddenly you're you're coming up with all sorts of brilliant arguments you would have never come up with had you not been bribed. And therefore you're trying to convince them. And the concern is you may bribe one judge and it's going to affect, you may bribe the individual and it's going to have a carry effect on the what do you call it, on the rest of the judges. Okay, now I'll show you something unbelievable. Do we have a blackboard here? Okay, watch this. Mayor, is this gonna, can I walk along with this? I don't want to, I'm chained up over here. Not a bad idea for teenagers, by the way. Is there a...
It's the same with the marker, sir?
Yeah. Oh, that is the eraser. Wow, that's really nifty. Hey, cool. Wow, I like this. I feel like the weatherman on TV. Well, we got a warm front coming in from the Gulf of Mexico over here. You know, there's the thing. What do I care about what's happening in the Gulf of Mexico, man? Tell me if it's going to be hot or cold. It's like, you know, if I play ball tomorrow, what do you got to give me a whole song and dance? Okay, I got that off my chest. Now watch this. If you take a bribe, what happens? Shin ches dalet. Watch this. If you take the bribe, what's going to happen? Well, look what the Torah says. The Torah says, lo sate mishpat. Right? Don't distort the judgment. Now watch this. What's the letter in the Aleph Beis after Shin? A Taf. What's the letter after the Aleph Beis after a Ches? Is a Tes. What's the letter after Daled? Hey. Lo sate mishpat, the first word in the pasuk. Lo sate mishpat, don't distort it, and don't take a bribe, because if you take a bribe, you're going to distort it. Okay? Now, what's the next letter in the Aleph Beis after a Taf? Aleph. What's the letter in the Aleph Beis after a Tes? Yud. Well, we're going to put it. What's the letter after a Hey? Is a Vav. We'll put the Vav over here. Put the Yud over here. That's a little switch. Not Nishkeferlach. What is that? What does that spell?
Oi.
Oi is a word. It's a word. Oi is not right. Oi is not just a krechs your Zaidi made when he sat down. Oi vey, my back is killing me. Right? Oi is a word in Mishlei. It says lemi oi, lemi avoy. Who's groaning oi and avoy? Why do people say oi vey? Oi vey is just a spin-off of the word oi and avoy, which appears in Mishlei. And it goes on to say about how a person groans oi and avoy when they drink too much. Lemi oi, lemi avoy. Who goes oi? Who goes oi? Somebody who's had a little bit too much to drink and they got a hangover. They're yelling oi avoy, or they got punched out in the bar. Right? That's what it says. They get bruised up. They get into a fight. So what happens? You know what we say in davening? We say Hashiva Shoftenu Kivarishona. We say this every day. Bring back our judge v'yatzenu v'hoser mimenu yagon va'anocha. Remove from us all sorrow and groaning. Sorry, Mayor, I'm making your work today. Remove from us all sorrow and groaning. Why do we say it in that bracha? Hashiva shoftenu kevarishon of yotzenu v'haser mimenu yagor. Why is that? Why do we say it in V'li Yerushalayim Yircha? Build Yerushalayim, remove all of our sorrow and groaning. Redeem us, rest tzemach Dovid, and remove our, bring the geula and remove our. Why in the bracha of Judges? So the Parsha explained there is nothing in life that is as frustrating as knowing that you're being cheated. It's one thing if a person goes through a difficulty, a person chas v'shalom, person loses their money, a person gets sick or whatever. But when a person knows that they're right and you're being cheated by the judge, you walk out. There's no justice here. There's no. It's such a what do you call it? A feeling of being of helplessness, and that's why we say specifically in that bracha. Hashiva shoftei v'haser mimenu yagod v'aracha, specifically in that bracha. So if you take a bribe, you're going to incline the judgment, and then somebody's going to walk out of court, going, "Oi!" The ultimate frustration. I can't get justice over. These guys are cheating me. Okay, look what comes next. What's the letter after Aleph? Is a Beis. Okay, we'll put the Beis over here. What's the letter after Yud? The only reason is a Chaf. We'll put the Chaf over here. What's the letter after Vav? Is a Zayin, right? Which spells Kazav, which is falsehood. You got a bribe, inclined people start groaning because of the falsehood. And what comes next? What's the letter after a Chaf?
Lamed.
Is a Lamed. We'll put the Lamed over here. What's the letter after a Zayin? Is a Ches. What's the letter after a Beis? Gimel. Gechal is a coal, right? You get the burning coals of Gehenna. Right? The person, well, don't take bribes, you won't have problems, right? That's what the Torah is saying. That's what all happens as a result of one thing right leads to the next, right? You take the bribe, you incline the judgment, somebody gets upset, and the next thing you have is falsehood, and you have the punishment of Gehenna for the person who's taking the bribe. Okay? Pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah. So Chida says it. Yeah.
Could that be related with somehow letting the Yetzer Hara gain strength, so to speak?
We are bribed by the Yetzer Hara. Yes, absolutely correct. The Yetzer Hara bribes us all the time. And the bribe is the pleasure or the perceived pleasure that we're going to have. Yes, the Yetzer Hara is considered to bribe us. And a person has to, what do you call it? A person, the Arab Forship say, they're talking about the Yetzer Hara, they see symbolism here of the Yetzer Hara as well. What was I going to say? The Gemara says a judge, bribery doesn't have to be with money. The Gemara says one of the Amorim, I think it was Rav or Shmuel, I don't remember which one was which, one of them had a feather that fell on him. Somebody pulled the feather off of him. He said, "Why did you do that?" He says, "Well, I'll see you in Beis Din today. I'll see you in court today." He says, "I'm disqualified to judge your case." And a Beis Din, a judge has to know whether or not he must recuse himself because he's got a personal bias. And if somebody has done you a favor, it's very difficult to see through the favor. It's called a bribe. It's a shochad. You bribe them. And a bribe is so powerful, it works beyond human nature. That human nature is such, once somebody has bribed you, you cannot maintain your objectivity. And therefore you're not allowed to take bribes. And what do you call it? I remember when I was a little kid in Chicago growing up, the state's attorney of Illinois, he died. State's attorney died. I think I was about 10 years old. And when he died, they found shoe boxes stuffed with cash all over his house. State's attorney of the state of Illinois. Shoe boxes stuffed with $900,000 in cash. I remember as a little kid, I was enchanted by that. I didn't know anything about what a state's attorney was yet, but I was just enchanted by the idea of $900,000 cash in shoe boxes. Right? That really grabbed me. Where he got that from, that's a good question, isn't it? I mean, considering he's a state's attorney, state of Illinois. So Illinois was always ranked as the second most corrupt state legislature in the country. Anybody know who the first was? No. They're up high on the list. Right? Louisiana, New Orleans, yeah! They were number one, but Illinois was always number two. Chicago, the Illinois State Legislature were, we had them. Listen, we had 3 governors in a row that ended up in federal penitentiaries. Right, we're heading for a minion, but 3 governors in a row. At center. Right. So you listen, from Chicago was that was the so the Torah tells you, listen, that's the nature of bribes. Nature of bribes. Bribes are very difficult. Now, where you're allowed to bribe people, or you're not allowed to bribe people, a policeman is a law enforcement. He's not a judge. By the letter of the law, it works with judges. Right? But anybody who is a law enforcement, you can't go bribing policemen. You could bribe. Then Jews existed on bribes through history when there were anti-Semitic policies against them. So the Jews had, the government passes a law that all Jews have to do this or you have to leave the town and you bribe the guy. That's how Jews survived through history. That's why Yaakov sent the gifts to Esav. That was a bribe for survival. But if a cop stops you for speeding, I had a friend who got stopped today. He's a rabbi, obviously. And he got stopped by a cop in Chicago. The guy said, listen, buddy, you're speeding. I have to give you a ticket. He says, can I pay part of it in advance? He says, yeah, okay. So how much? Well, whatever it's worth to you. Right? Not allowed to. Even if you call just paying part of it in advance. And they told us when I had my driver's license, is here's your license, and then you put a $20 bill. Always carry it. If you get stopped by a cop, he says license and registration, you just hand it to him. Hand them the whole package. And if it comes back without the 20, we're good to go. I knew another guy was coming back, he had a kosher salami. A big kosher salami, Sinai 48 salami, got stopped by a cop. He got stopped by a cop in Chicago. He said, hey, you want a salami? He says, yeah. Right. He starts handing it. He says, not here. It was on the main street, so he pulls it to the side. A friend of mine pulls it to the side, so he gave him a salami. Okay, go. You're good to go. All in a day, he gave him a whole salami. There's a lot of money in salami. A whole salami. Cop came home. I'm sure him and his wife had salami sandwiches that night. Hey, look at this. Had a great day at work today. Look at this. Came home with his wife. See, you can't do that. You can't do that. If you're in a situation where something is being done unfairly, so that's something else. All right, TBC, gentlemen.